Lord, the Senate President has restricted us to 2 questions, but I will just take 1 question, very small one, and then an advice. My question is on the philosophy of the Supreme Court. My Lord, in 2018, Akeredolu versus Abraham, I can quote the Supreme Court, if you permit me. The Supreme Court said, technicality in the administration of justice shuts out justice, and went further to say that it is therefore better to have a case heard and determined on its merits than to leave the court with the shield of victory obtained on mere technicality. This Supreme Court. So we're very happy with that. But my Lord, just a few weeks ago, the Supreme Court also said, and I quote, the correct order to make is to declare the judgment of the trial tribunal a nullity as a result of one of the panelists not sitting on a day proceedings were held. And so Nigerians are really worried. Where would this Supreme Court be situated? We would like to know from you, under you, where justice will be. Not where justice will be, what we can expect from the Supreme Court under you. The second part, my Lord, is an advice. The country is in very serious trouble, and we all know. And we see the court as the institution that will help us to be able to navigate out of the difficulties we are in today. And so, my advice, my Lord, is that this Supreme Court under you must continue to put Nigeria before any other thing, so that we can have a country. Because if we don't have a country, there will be no Senate, there will be no Supreme Court, there will be nothing except a Somalia situation, and we don't want that. Thank you, my Lord.
A question by distinguished Senator Abaribe centers on the technicalities and perhaps the difficulties we are facing in technicalities. Permit me distinguished President and the senators to say that what is a technicality? Something which is technical, in my definition, it is something that is not usual, that may sometimes defy all the norms known to a normal thing. It may be technical. Now, we have technicalities in our laws, and this is because these laws that we have inherited, we inherited them from the British. The British people have, for quite centuries ago introduced what is known as technicalities in their laws. Now, if something is technical, it is in a way given a leeway for double interpretation. It may be interpreted this way by Mr. A, or it may be interpreted this way by Mr. B. Now, if something is technical, comes before the law or before the courts, what we normally do at the trial court is we ask people who are expert in that field to come and testify. We rely on their testimony because they are experts in that field. Ask me anything on aeroplane, I don't know. Ask me to drive an aeroplane, I am sure if you are a passenger and they told you that that flight is going to be driven by Honorable Justice Ibrahim Tanko, I am sure you'll get out of the plane. Because it is something that requires technicality. And if I have any technicality, my technicality will only be limited to law. Therefore, it is something that has to do with the perception of the way you think you'll be able to achieve the goals of what you want to achieve. Several of our laws are dependent on technicalities. But remember, when we come, we have what is known as rules of interpretation. We resort to rules of interpretation. There are several rules of interpretation. Those of us who are lawyers here, no. There are several rules of interpretation. So we resort to that one. And it is through that we resolve the problem that is technically raised. So that is the answer. Now, on the second one, which is asked by the deputy leader on the relationship between the legislature and the executive in a democracy.
My Lord,
Yes, sir.
I suggested that you don't have to answer the question because we are at the moment not seeking for an interpretation, and the question was, I think, more of interpretation on the authority, and you can skip that. Thank you.
The